Arab and Muslims Americans, after 1 week of the American tragedy, on our mind, shock, grief, fear, and support. How do we deal with all of that? How can we cope with all of that, physically and psychologically? In spite, of course, as we all know, the American administration, it did all its best to really calm us down and say that we are part of this community. We're a very important part, but yet that fear still hangs there on our mind. How do we handle all of that? What do we do? So many questions really on our mind. What do we do? Where do we go? And so on. We're part of this community. So that's why ANA Television, and for the first time with C-SPAN 2 and the Arabic channel that serves New York, New Jersey, and the metropolitan area, for the first time we decided to do this 2-hour unique show, special show. Our guests are from the major Arab and Muslim leaders in this community, also members of this community. How did they react to all of this? Not only here in Washington, but also outside Washington. Beside that, we have also a congressman with us, and we'll be happy to be as our guest. And later on also, we have live from Cairo, Egypt, the former ambassador, Robert Pelletro. All of this coming to you in this 2 hours. Of course, I would like to encourage all our viewers, that's ANA, C-SPAN 2, and Arabic channel, to join us on this number. Please call us and express your views. And you know, this is really great for us, really, to talk to the American audience and listen to them. They have been great support to all of us, yet we would like to hear you directly. Our telephone number is 202-898-8008. That's in the studio. And beside that, during these 2 hours, we're going to show you numbers where you can donate, financially donate, where the Red Cross is really asking for. There's a hotline if you are being assaulted by any kind, and all the update what's going on. And before that, before we are really here and open our program in the studios and speak to our guests, I would like to point out right now that we are go to a roll-in, and that will show us what happened last week. So the report was really prepared by my colleague, Omar Akruk.
Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. Like many Americans, we were on our way to work until shortly before 9 a.m. when we saw horror unfold in front of our eyes, watching the World Trade Center being under attack. The World Trade Center, those familiar shining towers that have dominated the New York skyline for 25 years, had been struck by hijacked jetliners. Then, unbelievably, a second icon of America was attacked. At approximately 9:30 a.m., a third hijacked jetliner slammed into the Pentagon. As a nation, we watched helplessly as smoke and flames bellowed from the World Trade Center and the Pentagon.
A terrorist attack. I can't tell you anything more than that. I saw the plane hit the building.
As the world watched the sheer horror of these events unfold before our eyes on television, many of us shared the common thought. We prayed that there was no connection between the sick people who executed these heinous attacks and the Middle East.
It feels like it's a state of war right now. There is no dealing.
The terrorists struck at symbols of American prosperity and security. Well thought out, like many other aspects of their attack, the terrorists purposely chose to destroy those potent images of our great country's economy and military. When the terrorists struck America, they struck all of America, including its Arab American and Muslim American population. It has been estimated that hundreds of Arab Americans and Muslim Americans lost their lives in Tuesday's tragedies, but the human tragedy has become intertwined with global politics, putting Arab Americans and Muslim Americans in a difficult situation, unequivocally condemning the terrorist attacks while feeling a tinge of sympathy for the politics behind them. Many of our leaders, including the president, have called for tolerance and understanding toward the Arab American and Muslim American population.
I know I don't need to tell you all this, but our nation must be mindful that there are thousands of Arab Americans who live in New York City, who love their flag just as much as the three of us do. And we must be mindful that as we seek to win the war, that we treat Arab Americans and Muslims with the respect they deserve. I know that is your attitudes as well, certainly the attitude of this government. that we should not hold one who is a Muslim responsible for an act of terror.
As fears of reprisals against our community have risen, slowly stories of isolated incidents of discrimination have unfolded.
Ever since the attack, the Muslim community has been receiving a lot of backlashes, such as, racial profiling and vandalism of mosques and sisters being assaulted who, wear hijab. And as an American Muslim, our organization and many Muslim students in the area joined together to go in front of the blood centers, with the Red Cross and other relief organizations to donate blood and to give our condolences to the families of the victims.
Since the devastating attacks on Tuesday, America has been in mourning, pouring its grief into prayer, support, and relief efforts for the victims of these horrific acts and their families. Candlelight vigils and memorial services have taken place not only throughout America, but all over the entire globe. American flags are being shown proudly from rooftops and office building windows all over this great country. Perhaps no community has felt a greater need to show their love for America than the Arab American and Muslim American community. Here at ANA, we want to combat destruction with creation. Throughout the show, we'll be letting you know how to help out the victims of this horrible attack. Let's show all America and the world the strength and the solidarity of the Arab American and Muslim American community.
And our telephone here inside the studio, 202-898-8008, and we'll be so happy to receive your calls. So do not hesitate, express your feelings. Now, in the studio, we start our program, and on my left is Dr. Jim Zogby, and he's the president of the Arab American Institute. And on my right, Mr. Khaled Saffuri, president of the Islamic Institute. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you, Shameem.
All right, now my first question would be for both of you, and I would like then Jim to start with it, and feel free, to interact into that. The first question, after 1 week, where are we as Arab and Muslim organizations? What have we done so far? Start with you, Jim.
Well, I think that it's a complex question and it requires a complex answer. Where are we is different than what we've done. We clearly have, I think, as a community, shown our horror at this outrageous attack and our condemnation of those who perpetrated it. They've taken the lives of our fellow citizens. They've also put us as a community at risk, which is why I've said, and I'll say it again, damn them to hell for what they've done. America will never be the same, and I believe it will be strong, and I believe that we will survive, but a terrible price to pay. I think our communities have responded well. The administration has seen our support, has known of our support, and I think what is most gratifying to me, Shameem, is the extent to which people have reached out to us. Certainly the President and the Attorney General and the Secretary of State and U.S. Senate, which passed the unanimous resolution. But individual senators called and called repeatedly, and leaders across the board, Madeleine Albright, and I know Grover Norquist has a Republican leader, and Governor Jeb Bush from Florida, and Jack Kemp called with a very emotional message, and Senators Kennedy and Edwards from North Carolina, and Debbie Stabenow, Russ Feingold and Tom Harkin and Joe Lieberman. I mean, the list goes on, and ethnic organizations, and just our neighbors and our friends. But with all of that support, and as David Broder expressed it in the Washington Post today, respect for and protection of Arab Americans has in some ways become a test of American patriotism. We've risen, I think, to an important, there's an important recognition of the need not to single out and target and assume collective guilt for a whole community. But even with that, there is the pain and the problem, the fear that was expressed in the tape, and the targeting has continued. There's a soft underbelly to the support. We're getting support on top, but there is a problem, and we're seeing it, and it is frightening, especially to the most vulnerable parts of our community, the most recent immigrants, those who are more isolated and have not assimilated completely on the many levels of society. And it is a fear, and so we've met with the Justice Department on a number of occasions. They've set up a special task force to deal with hate crimes. They have announced as of today 52 active cases of investigation. They're committing to us rapid prosecution.
And there's a hotline also.
There's a hotline,
that
and I think that they should call the organizations and they should call the Justice Department or the FBI. I'm very proud to say, I just want to throw in a note because I know many people out there know me and have followed my son, who is at the State Department. He's now at the Justice Department, and he's just been appointed the head of a task force that they are having on this issue of affected ethnic communities. So they're moving and they're working with us, and I think we should be gratified that in this time of mourning, America has reached out to us and brought us closer into the fold than ever before. Khaled?
Yeah, well, I just want to comment, and maybe we'll lead to you, Khaled, when he said that America has reached out towards us. How about us?
Well, I think most important thing of the way how we felt the first day it happened, and how we are feeling now. Because it happened, and immediate reaction was disgust, anger, and fear, of course, because I mean we were sitting in Washington watching events in New York. Then I receive a call. I live in Pentagon City, and I receive a call from my niece that the house just shook, and then we hear that there is a fire in the mall, and it's actually the Pentagon was hit. I mean, these are neighborhoods. We live here. We know people. Our neighbors work in the Pentagon, my next door neighbors, and then that feeling changed with time when we start to hear that the perpetrators might have the same ethnic and religious background we have. So our anger is twice. Once because of this incident, because of the loss of innocent life. And second, because we feel betrayed by someone that we have nothing to do with their action, but still they could be Muslims, they could be Arabs. And that's why we should do twice the effort. I think it's our job, whether it's donating blood, helping and raising money for the families, and anything we can do, we should do it. We stand part of this country. There's over 10, 12,000 Muslims in the military that will be fighting America's war, wherever that war is. That's on one side. On the other side, we have felt, like Jim said, that people call us from all over the place. Yesterday when we met with the president in the mosque, someone said that the mosque in Sterling, Virginia was attacked. The church on Sunday, the neighbors raised money and brought it to them at the mosque to help them repair the damage. I mean, the solidarity that goes both ways is amazing, and this is what we need to show. And that's what we need to continue. I think this experience, as harmful as it is, it should be a good learning experience. We learned a lot from Oklahoma, and we feel our government learned from Oklahoma. So our president and the director of the FBI came and warned people from attacking Muslims. We have also to learn that we owe this country a lot, and we have to participate in every effort in helping recover.
It's unfortunate. The tragedy sometimes also brings something good, and unfortunate, I want to say that as you said, we should seize this opportunity. But before we continue, I'd like to remind our viewers. Now, our telephone number here inside the studio, we would like to hear from you, 202-898-8008. And by the way, this is also, the special show is to donate, so let's act now. I know many of our members of the community have already done so, but we have numbers for how to donate. Red Cross is asking for financial donations now, and also the Salvation Army. And we have so many important things, but also please take note of these numbers, and also of the hotline number if there's any assault, verbal or physical, to any member of the Arab and Muslim community. Please do not hesitate to call in the authorities. Again, we would like to hear from you also about your donations, financially, in any way, volunteer work. Okay, back to the studio, and we shall continue. Now, I still want to comment, what have we done? If both of you, of course, we all agree that this is a horrific, devastating incident that's beyond that we can imagine, really. But yet, have we done, I mean, here it's an opportunity for us to outreach the community, to tell the larger community we're part of you. What have we done? And we have an agenda for the future.
Let me tell you that the actions that the community have taken around the country are multiple. There have been blood drives, and there have been vigils, and there have been expressions of support, and on and on and on. And I think that is very important. But And there are Arab Americans who volunteered to serve as rescue people in New York and have gone in some wonderful stories, which I hope you'll tell later tonight.
Yes.
There are Arab Americans in the police department in New York who are working, and Arab Americans who lost their lives in the building, and we need to understand that. But at the same time, understand that while we are not diminishing in any way the gravity of the loss of life of our fellow citizens, we are engaged as well right now in another activity that has become central to the definition of the American spirit, and that is protecting our fellow community members against bigotry. And I must tell you that not only the President and the Attorney General and the entire Justice Department, but law enforcement officials across the country have asked us to work with them, because what they know is that as we build this national consensus against terror, as we join together with countries in the Middle East against terror, if our country divides internally, we are weaker and we're not America anymore. So that what we're getting right now is fascinating. We're getting volunteers. We're getting people who've called us and have come by to work, actually. Some brilliant political minds, Republicans and Democrats from past campaigns, have come to our office and said, we've wanted to volunteer, but they don't need us in New York, they don't need us at the Pentagon. We want to volunteer to support Arab Americans and Muslim Americans now, because this is the test of our democracy. Like I told you, I'm gratified, humbled, and overwhelmed by this. So I think right now that we have to understand that as we do the work we're doing around the country and keep America unified, we are engaged in a patriotic pursuit. And that's critical.
That's true. I have a caller, actually.
I want people also to just check our website at aaiusa.org, and you will see what we're doing and what other groups are doing. We have links to other organization websites. It's important to see the kind of work that is being done. You're right. aaiusa.org.
And by the way, all the Arab and Muslim organizations, they have a website, and you can log in, and as we talk to each leader, you will have the email address. But now we have a caller from Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome.
Mr. Zogby, I wonder if you would be willing to tell us some of the measures the American Arab Institute has taken in the past 10 or 20 years to help combat some of the activities that may give rise to the events of last Tuesday. And I'll hang up and listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, it's an issue that we were discussing in some measure at the Department of State in the last few weeks. I write a weekly column and have a weekly television show. Many of the listeners tonight have seen it. It's on Arab networks and it's broadcast to the Middle East. We are engaged in an ongoing dialogue. We see ourselves as playing a bridge role, helping America understand the Arab world and helping the Arab world better understand and value America. And so I believe that as we help Arabs understand the American spirit, the role of Arab Americans, and the fact that we are not hated, that we are not rejected, that whatever those terrorists did, they will not defeat America's resolve to protect and work with us, we are sending a message to the Arab world: you can't conquer the American spirit. So what we're doing is we're trying to send a message about the best of America to the Arab world, and we're trying to have Americans better understand the people of the Arab world and their needs and concerns. That is the role we play. And frankly, look, we have, if you want to know, we've been actively engaged in recruiting Arab Americans in the Foreign Service. We've been supporting Arab Americans in public life. We've been actually, as a result of the recent request of law enforcement agencies, our organization, I know Khaled and others, have been seeking Arab Americans who are Arabic speakers to join law enforcement. Right now they need translators desperately. Whatever is asked of us to do as Americans, we do, and I hope and I believe that we're doing as much as we can.
I'd like again to remind our viewers, ANA, C-SPAN 2, and the Arabic channel. Our telephone number in the studio is 202-898-8008. Khaled, yesterday, the visit of the President to Islamic Center, the mosque, that left really a quite overwhelming, I mean, the reaction towards all our community members, our community, and everywhere. Tell me something. I know you were involved. I know everybody was involved in that, but I would like to hear from you how the whole thing and well, I'm sure everybody welcomed the president, but a short summary of the whole
He won't
initiative.
take credit, but I'll tell him it was Khaled's doing.
It was Khaled's credit, so the credit goes to you.
The Islamic Institute has played a critical role in this whole issue of relationship with this administration. I want to give you credit.
Thank you, Jim. That's very nice.
I think it's also important to understand that the president has been from the beginning inclusive in all the White House activities. They treated Arab Americans and Muslims from the beginning as welcome part of America. The president's visit yesterday to the mosque came as to show support, to ensure us that we will be treated as U.S. citizens with all the rights, that any attacks on Muslims and Arab Americans would not be tolerated. It was a great show of support. We have to also to remember that he is the first president to visit an Islamic center in 40 years. He's actually the second president to visit an Islamic center.
That's what I heard, since Eisenhower, is that right?
So, yes, and so he came and assured us that we will be protected. Anyone that attack our community will be persecuted, will be treated as criminals, that the Muslim community, he acknowledged our role in this country, and he would offer support. He is there to offer support. He said that women with cover should not fear going out of their home to do their shopping, go to their work. And this is what all America is all about. America is people from everywhere. So it was a great experience yesterday. It was an entire hour with the president. And I think all over the country, people reacted positively.
Oh, yes.
And then whether it's our community or Americans, they understand now. And we believe that this will help in cutting down on attacks on the community, because when he is the leader of this country's approval rating is on the highest, and everyone believes that he is our leader. There is an agreement among the vast majority of Americans. Taking this step tells every American that what some people did is wrong, it's un-American, and you should not punish a group of people for the act of few. And this is why we were reassured that we're part of America, and this we feel more comfortable giving our country more.
Can I just make one point?
Yes, actually, because I have a caller online.
I just want to make a point that as important as it is that we seek support as Arab Americans and American Muslims, and that we support in turn our country, I want to just point out to our listeners a group that is all too often ignored in this situation, and that's the Sikh community. They have borne the brunt in many parts of the country. A Sikh man was murdered in Arizona, and there were over 150 instances of hate crimes against Sikhs. They are completely, they have nothing to do with this at all, but because they have beards and because they wear a head turban, they have been attacked violently and often. And that is to show you that this is nothing but bigotry. And it is wrong. That's why we have to root out the terrorism. We have to root out the bigotry. The two tasks right now will go together.
Our telephone number inside the studio where we can receive your calls, 202-898-8008. And we have a caller from Cleveland, Ohio. Oh, sorry for that. It's Raleigh, North Carolina.
Hey, how are you?
Hi. Yes?
Hey, how are you? My name is Hanan. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
The reason I was calling is because I basically wanted to address one additional issue, which is in many parts of the Arab communities overseas, there is a large Christian Middle Eastern population that for years has been discriminated against and persecuted in many Arab and Muslim countries. And as an Arab American and a Christian American, I think this is the appropriate time for us to gather together, both Muslim and Christian, and realize that that kind of behavior, no matter in what country, in what region of the world, is intolerable, and it's wrong, and it has nothing to do with religion, and it's basic humanities that we need to get together. I think what I would like to see is maybe the Islamic president and some of the other Islamic associations to open their arms to the American Copts Association and the American Christians in this country, and realize that for a long time in many countries we've been persecuted and killed and slaughtered for our religion as well. And that kind of behavior, as Americans, this is a free society and a free country to practice whatever religion you wish. And I think I would like to see them address that and possibly open their arms now and just basically address that issue and say this is not going to be tolerated in no matter what country, and realize that that needs to be focused and addressed to our Muslim countries and neighbors, that this kind of behavior is not correct.
Yes.
That all of us
Thank you.
are allowed to have a religion.
And let me just say one thing. 80% of Arab Americans are Christian. We know that, and we have been very clear about the fact that within our community we are unified and we do not allow division of any sort whatsoever. We work very closely with Muslim American organizations. Khaled's Islamic Institute is an important vehicle for our community. But within us and among us, there is and should be no division based on religion. We agree on that. I defended Pope Shenouda and actually took a petition on behalf of Copts back when he was imprisoned. And I feel very strongly about the issue you raise, and God be with you for raising it. And I want you to know that as Arab Americans, we defend the civil and human rights of our people here, but we also defend civil and human and political rights overseas. We feel very strongly about that.
Yes.
Khaled?
Actually, I think our organization have been strong on this issue, and we have clearly criticized all mistreatment of religious minorities in the Muslim world. As a matter of fact, our organization organized a conference last April in Qatar, in Doha, Qatar, with Heritage Foundation. We had several other organizations, and one panel was about religious freedom. We do not hesitate criticizing Arab and Muslim countries when they mistreat religious minorities. That's why our organization, we work very closely with many Christian groups in America, and we support the work of the Religious Freedom Commission that was established years ago with the help and support of Congressman Frank Wolf. And with all our reservations, but we think in general their work should be supported, and no religious minority should fear their right to practice their religion in any country, whether it's America or the Arab countries.
Very good.
Actually, after speaking, of course, about the President's visit to the mosque yesterday, we have online and a caller from Kansas City, and Suhail Khan. I would like to hear the reaction of the... Oh, we don't have him. I thought he was going to be with us because we wanted to hear other states, really, and about their reaction to this, because he called me earlier today and he told me how they felt. But anyway, I'd like to point out that we're still expecting Congressman Dana Rohrabacher to join us, and he is a Republican from California, and he has been a long friend of the Arab and Muslim community. But he was called to a meeting, but he should be on his way, right, Khaled? Hopefully. All right, so our telephone number in the studio is 202-898-8008, and also this show is also to encourage people to donate financially to the Red Cross, Salvation Army, and also to, in case some members of our community have not heard, there's a hotline that has been set by the government for if any member of the Arab or Muslim community will be assaulted verbally or physically. Please do not hesitate to call the authorities, because great measures have been taken in all over the United States. So do not hesitate. Let's join. But before we come, I know both of you, as usual, you're rushing in. This is really something big, and you have meetings running. But we also spoke about fear. We're still living under fear. We're still living under... the lady with the hijab is afraid to go out. Some schools were closed. We're going to tackle all these subjects later on in this special. But how do we, as you, both of you working, how do we overcome, outreach our community and tell them, show yourself, how they can express themselves also if they are, let's say, pinpointed by their colleague or down the street? In a short, how do we tell our community?
Look, first day after this occurred, I got a call from an anonymous caller. Said, Jim, every Arab must die. I'll slit your throat and kill your kids. And we had to get police protection, and the FBI came in. We're one of the cases that is currently under active investigation. It's frightening. I know it's frightening. My children have been frightened on the college campuses where they are. But we need to reach out. I mean, one of the problems here is people don't know us. And when people don't know us, they'll be afraid of us. And the extent to which they know us, they'll know we're good people. So my suggestions are, go to your children's school and offer to help provide them materials about Arab and Islamic cultures. Go to your, not only if you're Muslim, to your mosque, but go to the church nearby and say, I'd like to have a dialogue. Go to your neighbors who might be afraid of you and say, I want to take this opportunity for you to get to know me and me to get to you. It's the personal encounters that will turn this around. And if you look on our website at aaiusa.org, you will see a number of these ideas and suggestions. Get materials about our culture, about our tradition, about our heritage. It will help you in your local community build personal ties. This is a time for Americans to come together. You've got everything from the president on down. We have a wonderful talking paper of all the quotes of great American leaders, what they've said about us. Bring it to your neighbors. Bring it to your friends. Have a discussion group. And don't let this fear keep you inside. This is the time to go out and build a stronger America.
Khaled, how about you?
I think education, this is what Jim said. Education, you educate kids in school, you educate your neighbors when your neighbor doesn't know you. I think every member of our community can cover a large number of people. You have to reach out to your neighbors. One of the things our institute is doing since we were established, we try to do interact with other organizations, grassroots organizations. Our agenda is entirely focused domestically. We don't work on foreign policy. So that gave us 3 entire years, that's a time since the institute was established, of building relationship with so many different groups. These groups, because we did all this work of explaining what Islam, what Muslims stand for, came to us. Many phone calls came, many letters, many emails from these organizations the last few days, offering any kind of support that we might need. That's why I think everyone have a role. We have a role in the neighborhood, we have a role at work. At work, you educate your co-workers. At school, you educate your the students, and college campuses, and so on and so forth. And this is everybody's job. We have to learn. There isn't much good that can come from this disaster that happened last week, but we can learn. We learned from Oklahoma. We have to learn from this and try to get as much positive.
We have to act, actually.
Exactly.
Right? This is what we're all talking about, is we have to act, we have to go out and not hide, okay? We're proud of our background, heritage, and loyalty to this community and to this country.
And I'll tell you something. America is proving itself, I think, from what the president did and everyone else, to be the place I'm glad my dad came to. And so I think don't be afraid. Go out and find the best of America. There are the bigots, but they are a minority, and the majority good people who want to get to know you. You just need to get out and get to know them.
I would like to thank Dr. Jim Zogby, President of the Arab American Institute, and Mr. Khaled Saffuri, President of the Islamic Institute, for joining us. And right now, we'll go to this break, and please continue with us. Do not hesitate to call us, 202-898-8008.
Isn't that clock a little bit off?
These acts of violence against innocents violate the fundamental tenets of the Islamic faith. And it's important for my fellow Americans to understand that.
Welcome again to our viewers, ANA, all over the United States, C-SPAN 2, and Arabic channels serving New Jersey, New York, and metropolitan area. And this is a live show. This is a special show to show the Arab and Muslims, Americans, their reaction after this 1 week of this horrific incident that took place last week, Tuesday, that shook us all, left us in grief, in sorrow, and also in fear and support at the same time. With me in the studio, joining me right now, Dr. Ziad Al-Asali. He's the president of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee. And also on my right, Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, and he is a Republican from California, and as everybody knows, he's a long friend of the Arab and Muslim members of this community. I shouldn't say that. Welcome, gentlemen. I would like to thank you. I know you were busy and you had a meeting, but thank you for being able to come on this show. As I was talking the first half an hour with the Jim Zogby and Khaled Saffuri, we were talking about where do we stand now after 1 week of this horrific incident that took place. As members of this community, as also, I mean, Dr. Ziad as a leader of a big organization, and also, where do we stand out? And I'll get back to you. We'll start with Dr. Ziad with that. Where do we stand right now?
Well, we stand a little better than we did a few days ago. I can tell you by what we have received initially after the first day of the catastrophe, where everybody was in shock and disbelief and not knowing how to handle the whole situation, how to react, was the mix of emotions that every one of us had. Gradually, we had to deal with the realities of the situation. The realities said basically that we have been hit twice. We have been hit as Americans, individually, in our personal experiences with other members of our community and family members and friends, in a way that has never ever been experienced before at this level of civilian damage. And then gradually the sense of our vulnerability as an Arab American community has seeped in with the realization that the finger of blame has been pointed at this particular group, the Arab Islamic group, that we belong to. So we then started dealing with the consequences of that. And I can tell you, we have a civil rights organization, an anti-discrimination committee, which is in the business of anti-discrimination. So we started receiving what is called now euphemistically hate mail. This hate mail was most obnoxious and profane with no qualification, and people did not check their feelings initially. And we were reading this, and in the very second day, the chief of police of this city very kindly called me personally and asked if we were having problems. I told him, this is what we have here, and that's Chief Ramsey. And sure enough, he sent a group of his officers to our office, provided protection, and we still have that protection. So that gives you a level of the seriousness of the situation that we were at. The hate mail that was generated the first couple of days was enough to make us all feel uneasy, and then other things started happening. We initiated all the defense processes possible to first condemn this atrocious act in the most strong possible terms that we can come up with. And we started to give the people a sense of our community belonging in all our activities. And, we set up a relief fund. We have asked our physicians in New York to participate. We have asked, if there are any police people or volunteers to go out and be involved. And we activated our political contacts, from the president to the attorney general, State Department, and the Senate and Congress. And every one of these people have come through in a most gratifying manner. And I do want to take this occasion right now to speak to the Arab-speaking people in America, the Americans whose heritage goes back to the Arab and Islamic world. This is the time to show your appreciation for the kind of support that we have received from the highest levels of government in this land, President, Attorney General, Senate, Congress, etc., and the journalists. And this is the time to learn about politics in this country. This is the time to be involved, to act fully as American citizens. We have reaped a great deal of benefit from the stand of this government, which contrasted greatly with other places in the world that we know of.
Yes. I'd like to remind our viewers that our telephone number inside the studio here is 202-898-8008. Please do not hesitate. Let's hear from you. Whether you are Arab or a Muslim American or just simply American viewer. Congressman, now, as of course, we still have that fear inside us as a member of the community. I'm sure you've been hearing that all the time. In spite of what the government has done, really, I mean, as we say, as Dr. Ziad said, from the president to the Senate to every member of the cabinet to the police to the FBI and everything. And this is, of course, I would like to make that comment. Everybody was sort of taken by surprise for that quick action taken by the government, to make a stop to this. We are behind your members. But we still have that fear, and you are on the Capitol, really. And how would you communicate with us? Tell us.
First of all, it's understandable that when 5,000 of your citizens have been slaughtered, that people are going to look to vent their anger in some way. So it's understandable that someone would be afraid, my gosh, maybe I'm going to be accused unjustly because of my ethnic background. That's an understandable thing. However, I think it's important what was just stated and what has been talked about before when Jim was here, and is that you really get to understand what your country is really all about at a time of crisis. And I think that the people who've come here from who are Muslims and people who come here from an Arabic background are going to fully understand and appreciate what America is all about, because when all is said and done, yeah, every country has its bigots, and every country has its hotheads and people who can't control their emotions and do things that are irrational. But by and large, the American people are very good and decent people, and their government is trying to reflect that. And I know that, you know, you called me, for example, earlier when you introduced me as a friend of the Muslim or Arabic community. The fact is that's not true. I'm just someone who believes in treating people honestly and decently, and I believe in truth. And sometimes that puts me squarely on the side of the Muslim community, and because I'm just trying to do what I think is right, but try to be a decent person. And most Americans are that way. We're not pro or anti any group. We're just trying to do what we think is right.
But you see, Congressman, when I was asking and saying much, somebody told me about you, and they said the first thing that jumped to their mind, they said, he's a good friend, you know. I mean, this does, I mean, it does leave its effect on our members of the community. Don't forget that. And all members of the community know all our congressmen,
decent people,
right?
Let me tell you something. Yes. Decent people are friends of each other.
Sure, definitely.
And that's the bottom line.
That's right.
Is that to the members of the Muslim community and Arab communities who are a bunch of bad guys or something, I'm not a friend of those people. But to those vast majority who are good, decent people, just like the rest of us, I'm their friend. I'm your friend.
You are welcome.
The question, the major question of America is, here we are living together, and good and decent people have got to try to live together in harmony and show the world that there's a better way. And in America, we have a really important responsibility on two factors. First of all, we need to treat each other with respect and prove that there is a better way. But every American who comes from a different background, you know, we don't have one religion or one race or one...
It's a multi-pot.
That's right. But we have a responsibility then to be a force for good in that part of the world where our ancestors came from, or where we came from, if we are recent immigrants. It is up to us, and the Muslim community, just like the communities before, should now be looking back and saying, you know, America is this. We are trying to fulfill this promise, and we are going to show our patriotism by trying to be the voice of democracy in those lands in which we came from. And I think the American Muslims should, in a crisis like this, make sure that the Muslims throughout the world know that they too deserve democratic government. They too, and I think one of the biggest problems we've got in the world today is that the United States of America and other Western powers have just sort of said, well, we haven't pushed for democracy in the Muslim world as we should have. And frankly, I think Afghanistan, here we helped them defeat the Russians, but we walked away, and we should have been working with that country to help develop a more democratic system there rather than the Taliban, which of course is a dictatorship, and we wouldn't be facing the problem we have today.
Although to our maybe viewers who I'm sure most of them or some of them also right now don't know much about Islam religion, to speaking about democracy, Islam religion was the first religions to really emphasize on democracy a long time ago. So that was a long time ago, and I hope that would be practiced nowadays also, because we all need to live in democracy. Our telephone number inside the studio, 202-898-8008. And we have a caller from Los Angeles, I think. Am I right? Caller, please.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, hello?
Can you hear me?
Of course I can hear you.
Hello?
Hello, yes. Can you hear me?
Hello?
I think he cannot hear us, or there's something wrong with the connection.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Yes, Los Angeles, go ahead with your question.
Are you there?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes. Yeah,
Dana?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, bad news. I'm sorry, Dana. Anyway, if you can...
Yes.
You can hear me. I can't believe this. I'm from San Pedro, man, and we're neighbors, okay?
All right.
Listen, and I'm a Democrat, but you're my man, and I had no idea you were going to be on today. But what I called about today was I've been a student of history for the last 50 years. I'm somewhat older than you are, Dana. What I want to know is, in all those decades, I have heard very little protest from the Arab world regarding some of the atrocities and some of the things that have been going on against Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like an explanation of how come all of a sudden here we are hearing this protestation, and I'm sure there's been previous protestations, but I as a student of history and newspapers and the news media, I have heard very little protestation from the Arab world regarding some of the injustices that have been perpetrated upon the state of Israel.
Thank you.
And I wonder if you can address that.
Well, I'll just have to say that, you know, I mentioned that I am not someone who's a friend of the Muslim community. I'm just someone who wants to be a decent person, and I seek the truth. And I think if you seek the truth, that you will find that people have committed atrocities against each other in the Middle East, and that the Israelis have committed atrocities against Arabs, and Arabs have committed atrocities against Israelis. And I would hope that we, as Americans, would just say that it is not acceptable to target non-combatants, either as a target for a bomb, as we know that some of the people who oppose the Israeli government has bombed some civilian targets like Pizza Huts, but at the same time, it's not right to retaliate against a civilian target by simply indiscriminately bombarding some village someplace. And we've had killings like this on both sides, and America should stand for a higher moral standard. So I think that we have a great opportunity right now to, as President George W. Bush is moving forward, to set a new standard for the world and say that terrorism is when you target non-combatants to achieve your political ends, and that is not going to be accepted, and that any country that permits it from its territory or harbors such terrorists will face certain actions and pay a price. But that would have to go for people all people who are committing those acts.
Actually, there's been also part of the fear, and I think of the anxiety of the community here, and maybe Dr. Ziad will address it if you have a comment later on, you can see that. But I'd like to start, first of all, when we really proposed that question, or a response was from former Ambassador Robert Pelletreau, who's right now in Cairo, Egypt. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here in the studio. But we were talking about what would that, some of the Arabs and the Muslims saying, would that really, the approach of the administration right now to extend its hand to the community, would that have any change in the foreign policy in the future? And I think you did mention something about how we can fight terrorism everywhere, and that might change a little bit. So let's start by listening to former Ambassador Robert Pelletreau.
I believe internationally, I believe we should start with saying that we're in a different world than September 11th. And it's doubly clear that the United States cannot isolate itself from what is happening in the rest of the world. So we must go out and build a new, stronger, more comprehensive coalition against terrorism and against other international problems that could affect us all. And I think we'll have quite broad support when we do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ambassador Pelletreau, for taking this time.
So that was a response from former Ambassador Robert Pelletreau. And I'd like to start with you, Dr. Ziad. There's that still anxiety, and they think that maybe this is a chance for the foreign policy also to maybe take a different line towards evaluating everything, and we are all, of course, behind it, that we should fight terrorism no matter how, in any style or in any way.
Yes, I think it's exceptionally important to learn lessons from this catastrophe and from any other experience that is of this magnitude in history. One of the major challenges is to consider the morality of issues when one considers policy. I think the congressman has quite eloquently stated that morality has to be a foundation for policy decisions and indeed for the way people treat each other. The whole question of having double standards apply in foreign policy as well as internally informed of racism or discrimination has to be challenged at its foundation. If you apply the same standard, like the definition of terrorism that was advanced as any violence against innocent civilians, then we will have come a long way towards trying to assuage the feelings of hate and of intolerance everywhere. And then we can, if people do not then behave properly, then we should across the board apply the measures of dealing with those terrorists in every country at every time. I believe that this present catastrophe does present an opportunity for the administration and for the whole world to forge an alliance, a serious multinational alliance led by the United States, which is the aggrieved party in here. Let there be no question about it, that the broader this alliance is, the more it would take into consideration questions of focusing the attention on the culpability of the people involved in this one particular incident and the subculture that had made it possible. And I think this would give us an opportunity to reconstruct at least a new world order in the Middle East.
Well, I would agree that the United States should focus right now on the task at hand, which is seeking retribution against those people who had a hand or even a finger in this dastardly deed. And as Americans, our job is to stand united and to focus on that particular job. I don't think that we need right now to. I mean, I would hope that what comes out of this is a better standard and some very serious thought about about our policy in general. But the task at hand, the battle we must fight and win, is to, frankly, take bin Laden and all of his followers and all the ones who are involved in this and kill them. I'm sorry, that sounds very bloodthirsty, but the fact is that needs to be done in order to show anyone else in the world who, if they want to try to kill Americans this way, they themselves will pay the ultimate price. So hopefully we're deterring more violent actions like this. But number two, we need to make sure that that country that served as his base of operations, and perhaps some other countries that were helpful to him and his terrorist operations, that they too pay a certain price. And certainly the price that Afghanistan has to pay is not the people of Afghanistan, because the people of Afghanistan don't like their regime as it is. The people of Afghanistan have never been given a vote. The Taliban regime, I've spent much time in Afghanistan, certainly we know it does not reflect the broad religion of Islam, but it doesn't even reflect the faith of the Afghan people. And the Taliban have brought in, bin Laden has killed more Afghans than he has killed Americans. People have to understand that. Bin Laden has been marauding around that country, and with his terrorists that he's had from all over the world, killing anybody who threatens the Taliban rule.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, Congressman, because time we're running out.
Well,
the
bottom line is we need to overthrow the Taliban government and replace it, not us, but work with Afghans to overthrow the Taliban government. Let them do it. Let's give them the support they need and help them create a more democratic and prosperous society.
Well, I'd like to thank our guests for this half an hour. Who are with me in the studio, Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, and he is a Republican from California, Dr. Ziad Asali, and he's president of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee. And I'd like to just mention this to the viewers of Arabic channel. Right now, they will not be with us for the coming half an hour because they have the news, but they will rejoin us at 9:30 exactly. So don't forget, you can join us at this telephone number, 202-898-8008. And don't forget, please, you can donate. Act right now. Support. So we'll see you after this break. Welcome back for this special 2 hours to our viewers, ANA, all over the United States, and C-SPAN 2. And our telephone number inside the studio, 202-898-8008. We would like to hear from you. Please express your feelings. This is a great opportunity for us, and also we would like to encourage you to donate. And we have numbers that will be, of course, as you've seen it on our screen, telling you to donate. And also, there's a hotline. If you get any verbal or physical assault, the authorities have set up a hotline. Please call, do not hesitate. And we continue. We spoke with many of our guests, and I think now we are switching to another subject, which is very important. We talk about donations. We talk about participation as member of this community. We're part of this member community. Anyone, you know, by the way, I would like just to mention some of the names that we never really heard. And for instance, I have some names that were missing. We noticed that there was a name that's called Peter Hashim, and he was on the Flight 77 Dallas to Pentagon. It was really printed in the newspapers, but I've never heard, of course, but the name sounds, and somebody told me he is of Arab descent. We have Walid Iskandar, 34 years old, Lebanese, Palestinian Christian origin. He was on the first tower of the World Trade Center. We have also another Jordanian, Robert Ilyas Telhami, 36 years old. He worked with Cantor Fitzgerald at W Trade Center. And we have another Jordanian missing, Ramzi Atal Douani, 35 years old. He worked with Marsh and McLennan Audit Company on the 100th floor of the first towers. And there are, of course, other injured people, thank God. And also there's a lady by the name of Turi Bolorji, and she is of Irani origin, and she was also on the flight, one of the flight 175, and she's a mother. So all of these people were missing, and so many. I know there's so many of the Pakistani also community, and we know that. But these names, we'll talk more to some other leaders. Why do we not have, like, for instance, a website showing the missing people and all of that? But speaking of donations, donations and volunteer work are very important in such a crisis. And since we feel we're part of this society, of this community, and we are, it's not only feeling, this is a sincere feeling. What can we do? And the best thing is, of course, what? To call Red Cross. And I'm happy, of course, before I introduce, I would like to introduce my guest here in the studio. I have with me Mrs. Manal Omar, and she's a volunteer. And also I have on my right-hand side Miss Olga Bellido, and she's from the International Public Affairs at Red Cross. And I have a gentleman with me, Mr. Ashraf Sabrin, and he is an instructor and academic advisor at GW, but he is a volunteer firefighter and paramedics at Fairfax, Virginia. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
I said it's the most important is our support and how we act. So I'm going to start with you, Olga. Tell me. And we know so far what the Red Cross numbers, we have placed them on the screen, and this has been placed for the past week in all the media. But tell me more, what do we need right now? I think when we conversed over the phone, you said you don't need any more. We need financial right now donations, right?
Absolutely. Well, since the catastrophes happened a week ago, the American Red Cross has been on the scene helping, not only in New York, but also in Washington, here in Washington, and Pennsylvania. And we also have family members that were on those flights that are spanned throughout the United States. So the American Red Cross, through our local chapters and our volunteers that are trained before this catastrophe happened, have been there responding and helping. And our focus are on victims' families, and on those rescue workers that are out there working. We have shelters just in New York City and in the surrounding area. We have 14 shelters that are open. We have family centers where the victims' families can be at, can grieve together, and await more information from the authorities on their family members. And the American Red Cross, very importantly, we have psychologists. There are trained professional psychologists that are available to speak to anybody, victims, survivors, family members of those affected, and people throughout the United States that may be going through a hard time. This is very traumatic for many of us, and that's very important. It's absolutely very important. We would, you can help the Red Cross, and there's really 3 ways you can help. You can call 1-800-HELP-NOW, and that's the number to make a financial donation. You can call 1-800-GIVE-LIFE. 10 hours following the catastrophes, we had 1.4 million people call us to make an appointment to get blood. And that's just a phenomenal amount of people, and we're so incredibly happy that the people living in the United States, their generosity is just overwhelming. And we ask people to just wait a couple days, wait a couple weeks, and give us a call if the line's busy, because we're still going to need blood donations. And also think about volunteering with your chapter in the future. As I mentioned, we have trained volunteers. Our volunteering opportunities, our training are free. You don't pay for this training, but it gives you an opportunity that when a disaster happens, whether it's small, like a small single-family fire that we respond to, or something as large and catastrophic as these events, that people have roles to play, and they can immediately be assigned to take part in that role and to help people.
That's very good. By the way, we have a caller from San Francisco. Caller, please.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Lebanese American, and I'm a college student over here in the Bay Area. And first of all, I would just like to commend C-SPAN and ANA for the show. My question originally was for Dr. Ziad, but I just want to know why our leaders as Arab Americans are not talking to the other programs and showing us as positive figures, because as Dr. James was saying, that you only fear what you do not know, and we're getting portrayed as terrorists basically. And to me as a student, it's awful because our community is being discriminated against because we don't have positive Arab Americans shown on TV. So I don't know who can answer that question.
Well, actually, thank you for the call. You know, we will be joined later by Mr. Abdurahman Alamoudi, who's also a leader of our community, and maybe we can ask him also that question, and we'll see. By the way, of course, let me speak fairly of the media, really. For the past week, and I think everybody agrees, that they have covered, they've tried, of course, to have always somebody, either Arab American or Muslim American, to express their feelings. I mean, and maybe I agree with you that we should have something that is on regular basis, so it's part of our education, but we will talk that to Mr. Abdurahman. Get back to you, Olga, about this. Now, as we know, the first, as you said, there was a huge number of people donating their blood, and I know personally of members of our community also. And speaking of a community, I don't want really separate Arab Americans, but member of the communities, they rushed and they were turned back, and they said, no, you have to call back and set an appointment. Now, what happens? Right now, you're not calling anymore for blood donation, you're calling for financial donation. What happens if somebody did set up an appointment to donate blood? Do they forget about that, or they will call them and restart the campaign?
No, please. If you went to donate blood and you were asked to call and make an appointment, or if your appointment is for some time in the future, please, please keep that appointment. On a daily basis, we need 25,000 units of blood in the United States just to fulfill the emergency needs. These are accidents, these are emergency surgeries. These are people that otherwise, without the blood that they need for these emergencies, may go through a very terrible time and may not survive. So please, we ask everybody that's watching to call the American Red Cross and make a donation to give blood. What we're asking is that maybe you wait a couple days or a couple weeks, because we're always going to need blood donations to help people that are sick or in some type of an emergency situation. And we're asking people to donate money to the American Red Cross, because our work is going to be going on for months. Many, many families have been affected, and we want to be there for everybody that needs our help.
That's great. Of course, I mean, we, speaking maybe the media also, I mean, the Arab American media, and I think everybody should always be in touch with Red Cross and other agencies, because we learn a lot also, and we can also take part of that. So right now, what we are really emphasizing on volunteer, mostly, right?
And volunteers are very important for different groups in the United States.
And what kind of volunteers? I mean, what would they be doing? Let's give a clearer idea to our viewers.
Absolutely. We ask people to get in touch with their local chapters, because there's so many opportunities in the American Red Cross, and they can choose, for example, disaster volunteers. And disaster volunteers, you can learn how to run a shelter for people that have been displaced. If you are a psychologist by trade, you can learn mental health. You can learn how to do damage assessment. there's so many different things you can do in the American Red Cross and disaster services, and yet there are other opportunities also. For example, in our health and safety, you can teach a CPR class. You can teach a first aid class. There's so many things you can do.
So
and
just
it's really
volunteer.
for the person to go in and they get an orientation on the Red Cross and our services, and the opportunities are put before them, and they can decide which way they want to go.
Good. Okay. And we have another caller from Cleveland. Yes, caller, please.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please. Hello?
I think, can I ask you please to turn your TV set down a little bit so we don't have that echo? Okay. Olga, I would like to thank you very much for joining us and really taking that time and giving us all that information. And we will, of course, play throughout the program all the numbers. Thank you very much. I'd like to continue with that subject. And now, since Olga said about donations, about volunteer work, which is the most important. I'm going to start with you, Manal. Manal, you tell me, I know I did interview before a few days, both of you actually, we spoke about the volunteer work. Your reaction, immediate reaction, and what you did as a volunteer.
I have to say my immediate reaction, like many other people, was complete disbelief and devastation. And there was an instinct that kind of just paralyzed me when I heard about what happened. And I turned to volunteerism as a way also for healing. It wasn't just to go out and to help, but it was also a way to become part of my community and to start the healing process in regards to what happened Tuesday. And the first thing I did was, obviously I called the Red Cross, which was the first thing that the news was emphasizing to give blood. And as you mentioned, they said that at this current time that they didn't need people, but they were willing to make an appointment. What my organization did is we're running a blood drive in October, because in the beginning of October, because we know by then the blood will be needed, and most of the mobilization might have begun to slow down. So we're doing ours in the beginning of October. But then I, persisted and kept trying to call and find out. And then I heard about a group of people who were meeting in the Old Town Sheraton, where they were making food and providing some basic supplies to the Pentagon workers. And so I called my husband, and we went and, whatever small contribution we could do, we wanted to do. So.
Excuse me, you told me you were hesitant at the beginning because of your hijab?
I was hesitant, I was hesitant. Part of it was because of my hijab. I mean, obviously, the main part was because of my hijab. I was in a training seminar when the news of the terrorist attack happened, and the looks and the stares that I were getting, the accusations that were thrown my way, really paralyzed me. And it really hurt to think that somehow people could look at me and tie me to this atrocity. And that was devastating for me. And literally for 24 hours, I did not leave the house. And I thought to myself, I've always volunteered. I've always been a part of my community. And I thought, this is not the time to stop.
But you went. And how was the reaction when you walked in?
It was wonderful. I'm so glad I went. It was, by the time we got there, it was just, the man that greeted us was so welcoming and very warm. And it really made me, it just reinforced the idea that, you can never go wrong when you volunteer. You mentioned that we are part of the community. This is a fact. We are part of this community. We live here. We go to the school here. And we always have to be involved. It shouldn't take a major disaster for us to be shaken up and wake up. We should always become involved. And that's why I decided to do it.
Good. Lovely to hear that. All right, we have a caller from Queens, New York. Please, go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Yes?
Hello?
Hello, yes.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. There must be something wrong with you.
Hello?
Yes,
I want to ask,
Go ahead.
what's going to happen to us? The way we are, with the hijab, a lot of people, we got a lot of people, look at us like, we are terrorists. We need somebody actually, not only in this channel.
Yes.
We need somebody also to, to talk about it on any other channel, because, they talk about Islam like all the Muslim people, they're bad.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually,
thank you. Yes. You want to comment?
Yeah, I do want to comment just real quick on that. I think it's, I mean, never underestimate the power of media, but never underestimate the power of personal connection. And I think that, yes, you're right, organizations need to take a stand and we need to be out in the media, but most importantly, go to your local church. I know that in Tennessee there were people that I had worked with in the past. In Boston, you know, Quaker Society, the Catholic Society, and they all remembered me, and we should remember them. So if we do the personal contact, in many ways that will go farther than just media, because people will know you, they will remember you, and you know they will realize that you're a person. It's not just you know, this thing that they're presenting in regards to Islam. So.
Actually, I mean, joining us right now on my right-hand side is Mr. Abdurahman Alamoudi, President of American Muslim Foundation. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
I know Ashraf is waiting. We'll talk more about volunteer, but maybe I'd like to hear your response to that caller also.
Well, my response to her, I want to tell her that, as Sister mentioned, there are people, this is the time for her to stand up and show her face. And what Manal said, the connection is very important. I want to tell her in Washington, there is an American women organization where they said they will all wear hijab going to their work in solidarity with the Muslim women. So I think for her to stay at home, for my wife, for my mother, for my sister, no. Yes, we have to have protection, but show our faces there. And I'm so proud of Manal and of Ashraf. If we had, and we do have, 1 million Manal and 1 million Ashraf, that's what we want to show. And I think my mother has to come out, who is over 70 years old. My sister has to come. We all have to come out. Don't take your hijab. Nobody asks you to do that. Whether you wear or not, that's your personal choice. But come out and show America. And I think it is time for Arab businesses and Muslim businesses and all of us to show the support. For Ford Foundation to say that they're giving $10 million.
Yes.
For this to say that, where are we? And for our governments, I think it's time for us to give some money and give some of our blood, sweat, and tears.
I'd like to take a caller from Phoenix, Arizona. Please, caller.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fine. I know you've been having trouble with your phone line, so I just thought I'd check.
It's okay.
Okay, well, I'm not an Arab or a Muslim. I'm a Christian. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. But I worked a lot in the Middle East, and I have made several acquaintances in the Saudi Arabia area, which I consider my friend, and I hope they're still my friend. And I'd just like to give my perspective on, I think, a lot of the problems that we're having here now and that you're having. And it all stems to what I see as power and ignorance. And by ignorance, I don't mean the people are ignorant, but I mean that those who seek power use the uneducated or the naive to I guess, establish or force their power forward. Now, that's not only in, from what I understand now. Now, I'm no authority on the Quran or the Muslim religion, but I understand from a doctor of the Muslim religion from Georgetown who was on TV the other day that the Quran does not see Christians or Jews as infidels. But yet, a lot of these forces who, like Osama bin Laden, some of these people, they don't represent the Muslim religion, but they represent the power. And they use the ignorance of some who don't maybe understand the Quran to push this. And it's the same in this country, whether it's our political leaders or some of our religious leaders or what. You know, we've had a lot of problems here with people not telling the truth to seek their own agenda. That goes as far as even the news media slanting the news to their way. And I'm only hoping that I realize this is the Arab Network, but I hope that there's a lot of non-Arabs that are watching this. And I'd like to say to them that this isn't this. You know, a lot of people in the news have been saying that this is the first attack or the first terrorist act on this land since the Oklahoma City bombing. But that's not true. I mean, they can go to the Ku Klux Klan, they can go to the Weathermen, they can go to the Symbionese Army, they can go to the environmental groups that burn down homes or chalets, they can go to the animal rights
Anywhere,
group.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Yes,
So,
thank you very much.
okay.
Thank you very much for your input. That's lovely. Thank you. Before I know, you might want to comment, but let me speak a little bit. Go back to volunteer work, which is very important.
sure.
And actually, I would like to ask, because Mr. Abdurahman, he's the one who told us about those wonderful people. As you said, there's 1 million of Manal, there's 1 million of Ashraf. Ashraf, you're a volunteer. Firefighter and paramedics, and you told me something that you were at the Pentagon site the first day.
Yeah, I was there on the first day. We all have pagers, and they paged us to. It said report to your stations immediately, and at that time I didn't know what it was. It had just taken place, and I was at work at George Washington, and of course you have to report to your station. There must be something serious. And on my way out, we saw a television, and realized what had been going on. So basically, we were supposed to go to your station and jump on the apparatus and go to the Pentagon, basically, and that's what we did. For the first few minutes, actually, we were hesitant. We couldn't go in because there's other people who have to go in before us to size up the scene and technical rescue and make sure that it's stable enough for us to enter. And we get assigned a different apparatus. Some people are going as firefighters.
What was your feeling when you were there the first? I mean, to see that most devastating sight.
Yeah.
What was, as a human being
yeah.
here?
Actually, I mean, the first time I was on TV, I saw it as I was walking out. I saw it on TV, and I have to tell you, I mean, I'm born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Even though I'm Arab American, I'm a very patriotic American. I love my country very much, and I would never want anything like this to happen to it. So obviously, I was completely devastated, and I was angry and offended and very hurt by the whole thing. And there's a great feeling of somberness in my workplace with everybody and everything, but we were all very supportive of each other and everything. We try to see what we can do to help, basically.
Sure. Speaking of Columbus, Ohio, do you know we have a caller from Columbus, Ohio? Isn't that quite a good incident? Coincidence? Yes, please. Columbus, Ohio, please.
Hello, yes, just calling to thank you for the broadcast this evening. It's very good to hear from the Arab American community. And as a fellow American, just want to voice my support in defending our Arab American community's civil rights. Also, wondering what your thoughts are, the fact that these terrorists abroad do hide behind the loyal Arab American community to stage internal terrorist operations here in this country. It must be something that it's of grave concern to all of us Americans, and would be interested in hearing your thoughts on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
I disagree. There is no Arab American or Muslim American that will harbor any of these people. We keep on preaching in our churches, in our mosques, in all our places. And we've been saying this since the Gulf War. You remember the second Gulf War. Since then we had these problems. You will not find an Ashraf or an Abdurahman or of anybody who will harbor any of these people. If we see or hear of any of these people, we are the first people to turn them in. And I want to tell the American people, they have to have the confidence into us. As Ashraf said eloquently, we are Americans, we are patriots, we will never allow anybody to touch any. First, because our religions, whether we are Muslim, Christian, or Jew, tells us, indoctrinate us that you cannot injure anybody. But second, I'm afraid for myself and for my kids. So no, there is no Arab American or Muslim American or any who will harbor any of these terrorists, and we have nothing to do with this. This is why I say we don't have the guilty feeling. Yes, we feel that people associate us with this, but we stand up, and we are proud that we have our Manal in here, because we have to stand up, don't give in, and don't accept the association. I was going to ask Ashraf if he felt that somebody was there, because unfortunately we have some incidents.
Yeah, I know, we're going to ask her, but let me take a caller also. Sure. Arlington, Virginia, go ahead, please.
Yes, I have a question as to why the Arab and Muslim ambassadors did not come to the main stations, the ABC, the CBS, the NBC, etc., and voice the true pictures of the Arab and the Muslim communities and their feelings. And not only in the United States, all over the world, England, Germany, Britain, etc., Latin America or Asia.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You wanna, on their behalf, but you know that question should really go to them. But.
I won't speak on their behalf. We have been urging them to come out. They had a meeting last Friday, they had meetings today, and they are staging some of the good work out there, and hopefully we'll hear from them. But I agree with the caller. We have 15, 20 of them here. If all of them will come out and express themselves, that is very important for us. Actually, we and in our world would like to hear their discussions that they have with the American government.
Yes.
So I agree with the caller.
All right, we'll go back to Ashraf, and I think we were saying something about any incidents or anything. There was something you mentioned to me also the other day.
Actually, when we arrived on the scene, like I said, we have to wait for technical rescue to go in and size up the scene. And while there was another firefighter in front of me who was not from my battalion, and he didn't know me, and I didn't know, I didn't know him. He was in front of me talking to another fireman because we were all waiting in rows to enter into the scene, and he said, "Those damn Middle Easterners." And I just basically tapped him on the shoulder and said, I'm an Arab American. I don't appreciate those kinds of comments. We're here to do our work, and we need to stick to that. So let's not start those types of things here. And he apologized, actually. And I think the thing is, with Americans, the good thing is that, if they see that you're a part of the community and a part of the society, you work hard right alongside of them, and that builds trust, and that builds, you're no longer considered the other. You're not considered from outside. That's why it's very important for Muslims. I myself, my motivation is Islam, and my motivation is as a Muslim. When I volunteer as a Muslim and as a practicing Muslim, and that's where I get my motivation. I think it's very important that we get out there and be a part of the community and give what we can. This crisis situation should bring it out even more so, but it's very important that we show that the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the essence is to give and to be kind and to be caring for other human beings. And the Prophet was the highest pinnacle of that example.
So we have to display.
Exactly.
And I think the congressman, as he was leaving, he pinpointed at something. He says, encourage everybody to display. For instance, when everybody's asking to put a flag, and there is the American flag on Ashraf's, and I think that's when there was a call to put the flag outside, to do this. This is part of our display that we are part of this community. Before I take your comment, we have a caller, please. I'm sorry, but we have so many callers. Okay. So I hope our callers make it short, and we go to Fort Charlotte, Florida.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. I just want to say I thought what Mr. Sabrin had to say about relating his activities after the blast, his rescue activities, was excellent. And I think if you have more Arab Americans interviewed on television telling all of America that they have suffered, find the victims and the families of the victims who are Arab Americans who are in the World Trade Center and have them interviewed on television, you will show the world that Arab Americans have suffered from these terrorist acts along with the rest of America. And this will go very far to show not only Americans, but the world at large, that Arab Americans have suffered from these terrorist acts along with the rest of America.
Thank you.
And you will bond Americans, all of us, all nationalities.
Thank you very much. Actually, thank you very much. When we started the segment, I was mentioning some names, and I wonder why some of the victims and missing people, do we have a website? Do we have, as this caller said, we see on television there are the pictures, the photos of all the missing people in New York. Have we done anything about this?
I didn't bring, but I had a picture of a husband and a wife who were in the 91st floor, working like everybody else, and they left a 3-month-old infant at home. So the pictures are there, and we'll bring them out.
But are they on display, Mr. Abdurahman? I'm calling now for the Arab lead or community. Do we have a website?
I will tell you, we had a conference, a press conference today, and we asked the mother of Sal Hamdani, you might know about it. She said, we told her, come and talk to the people. She said, I'm waiting for my son to come home.
Oh, cool.
So the tragedy is not over yet. There are people there. We'll put all that, and I thank the caller. But before thanking the caller, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you. Thank ANA and thank C-SPAN. But I want to tell everybody out there, Arab and Muslim, we have to absorb this shock from the people. We have to accept some of the anger of the people. The first day, we went and met with our supervisor, Penny Gross. She yelled at us as we came in. She doesn't want to see us. But we called her down, we talked to her, she came to our vigil, and we were part of it. So to the caller from New York, she says she doesn't want to come. No, come out. Absorb the shock. Absorb the sadness. Look, these people have to grieve. We are part of them. We are grieving. And then give back. And I think once we give back, you'll see these fine examples.
Thank you very much. This is really, I mean, this is how it is. We want to show, as our callers say, why don't we do that? We have been doing that. But I personally, again, I'd say I'd like to see a website placing those pictures of photos of those missing people who are part of this. Not only, I mean, this is it. It's America, Americans. No matter what religion they are, ethnic background, this is, we have people also they're missing, and we grieve with them, and we grieve with other people who've missed all, I mean, the missing people and their beloved ones. So again, our telephone number is 202-898-8008. I would like to thank you, Mrs. Manal, Omar, for taking this time, Mr. Ashraf, Sabrin, and Mr. Abdurahman, Alamoudi. Thank you very much for being here. And now we go to a break. Welcome back to this last half an hour of our special today, Arab and Muslim Americans, after 1 week of the tragedy, the biggest tragedy in America. And I'd like to welcome again the viewers of the Arabic channel that is serving New York, New Jersey, the metropolitan area, and of course, welcome again to C-SPAN 2 viewers and ANA. Please feel free to express your point of view. If you have any question to our guests, please call us at 202-898-8008. And of course, every once in a while, you're going to see on your screen the numbers where you can donate, whether it's financial donation or blood donation, or again, the hotline that the authorities have established. If any member of the Arab and Muslim community will be harassed or assaulted verbally or physically, please do not hesitate to call the authorities. Okay. Now, in the studio with me, I would like to start on my left-hand side with Mrs. Reshma Yaqub, and she's a journalist.
Hello.
Hello. And then on my right-hand side, Mrs. Myra Herbert. She is from the Fairfax County Schools.
Hello.
And the gentleman with us here in the studio, and Mr. Fuad Sahouri, president of the Arab American Businessmen. Welcome to the studio and welcome to this program, everybody. There's two, I mean, the issues that we talked about all kinds of issues, but I think what we're talking about two other most important. We're speaking about donations, volunteer work, support, and so on. Fear, anger, grief, shock, and everything. There's a right now we see donations coming in from everywhere. Okay, I want to hear about the stand of the Arab American businessmen. We hear now donations from companies, for instance, business companies all over, and we're part of this.
Well,
what are you doing?
I mean, you know, let's face it, at a tragedy such as this, which is the biggest tragedy in our American history, and we hope we never see it again. But you find yourself last week that you see all of the American society came in together collectively as one family, united, loving and sharing with one another. And you really don't find any different with the Arab American community in far as volunteerism, or far as, you know, donating, or far as doing their share. We have the Arab American businesses. They have done their share. They are willing and to continue to be doing whatever they can.
Maybe they've started donating?
Yes, it is their tragedy. They share in the bleeding. It is their responsibility. The difference is you really don't find them being singled out to say, we have donated or we have done what we're supposed to have done, and that is their moral and loving obligation to the country and to their fellow American. So while we cannot single them out, we know for a fact they have done their share. It's part of the American and also the Arab culture to give at the time of need, at the time when your fellow citizen, when your fellow human need. So we are not really experiencing anything different want to come to the Arab American as far as fulfilling their moral, loving, sharing, giving obligation to their neighbor or to the ones who have suffered.
Maybe because it's just that we were talking about now the media, it plays a big role and it's on the media, and we were encouraging all our leaders of the Arab and Muslim organizations to display something. We have to display. Before continuing, going to my next guests, I would like to remind you of the telephone number of the studio, 202-898-8008. And we have a caller from Michigan. Yes, caller, come in, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, like you, I'm a minority, and I'm Native American, though. Now, what I wanted to ask you, and I've been glued to this TV since Tuesday, and I've seen the media, I've seen everything, but there is one thing I have not seen, and that's Afghanistan and Muslim people that live in America have not rallied against this bin Laden. Not one person. Now, I know that when Native Americans have problems, we go right to Washington, D.C., and we stand in front of Washington, D.C., and we express our concerns. Now, I'd like to hear all your point of views on this because we have not seen it. You're scared, but we're scared too. And they talk about cells. Now, never in my wildest dreams would I ever hurt anybody, but we're all scared, even you. But to me, for you guys to do that, to rally, it would show me a little more comfort, and I believe it would show a lot of people comfort.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Yes. Perhaps Fuad, you would like to answer, and maybe Reshma would go into that also. But let's see, Fuad, would you like to?
Can you just summarize the question?
Well, she said, why couldn't you rally? I mean, she says, as Native Americans, we rally in Washington, any place, if there's something, and we express our views. Why doesn't that members of this community would do the same thing? She has never seen that.
Well, I mean, it's very unfortunate because the Arab American and the Muslim American community have had rallied.
But politically, I mean, more than as members of this community, I think that's what she's trying to say.
Well, I think, they have done their moral obligation and their human obligation as citizens. Perhaps they did not walking around, wearing their Arab American slogans because they acted as an Americans and they behaved as an Americans, and that's the way how they want to be reviewed as an American. They did not come out in a coalition to say, here we are, Arab American or Muslim American, that we are rallying.
So we're part of this.
We are part of the American society, and we all done our share as an Americans, and we have all suffered and felt the pain. In the meantime, we've done everything we can as a humans to participate in our own moral obligation.
It's good. Reshma, do you have any comment? And you're a journalist and...
I have seen the major American Muslim organizations and Arab organizations issuing release after release condemning these attacks. And they have been obviously meeting with lawmakers. I mean, there's been a resolution passed in Congress condemning the attacks on Arabs and Muslims, and obviously that sort of thing doesn't happen by itself. I mean, I do see the leaders being very proactive, and not just the leaders. All the Muslims that I know have participated in vigils on our National Day of Prayer and on other days, and we're all reaching out individually and collectively.
There is a very important issue also that touched us, of course, after this aftermath of this great tragedy, the fear, and we will speak of that, and other also how the point of view of the United States we'll talk about also. But right now, the fear that really stopped many Arab and Muslim families to send their children to schools. Many schools, as far as my knowledge here also, they were closed down, Islamic schools, of fear of harassment or assault. And some incidents did happen, and I had hoped that Mr. Nihad Awad was here to tell us of these incidents, but we all have heard about them. Statistically, you can go to the websites and find out, and everybody's agreeing on that, even the American administration. Now, why would I keep my child from school? Because of fear that his child, his color, or the way he looks, that he might be assaulted. They had, all the networks also had some programs about children, and they expressed their fears. So what is our system is doing? We've heard about the government system and different agencies and institutions, but how do we deal with it? And here is the best person maybe to talk about this. How did, for instance, Fairfax County handle this? Maya, that's your subject.
That's my subject.
Yes.
Well, we're in Fairfax County. I want to assure the Muslim parents, the Middle Eastern parents, that we will do our level best to keep your children safe in school. Your children are our children. We're working hard at making them feel comfortable in school, and we have been reaching out to the Muslim community to encourage parents to send their children back.
But you did notice a drop-off. Many of the children
last
that were
week,
not
which
sent.
is one of the reasons I've been talking with people in the Muslim community. We did have children absent from school last week in large numbers.
So what, did you call the families to find out what, I mean, to encourage them to send their children? What did you do exactly?
Well, I went on Arab radio.
You did, yes.
On Friday, and then I talked with Layla who asked me to come talk with you today. But we have a large Muslim community in Fairfax County, and many of the Muslim leaders have come forth to the school and talked with groups in the school, and they get our views back, I think, to the community itself. We've done as much outreach as we possibly could do in a short period of time.
But no incidents, I mean,
we
were
have
reported. You haven't had no
We
incidents.
have not had any incidents.
What happens if a child, okay, who all of a sudden felt that resentment and assault? What happened? Does he, I mean, I know you would, let's say, I mean, try to deal with that, but any child has come and said, okay, my friend, my colleague, you know, showed this or said this to me.
We would hope that those children would come and tell us immediately. We also are doing a lot. There are even teachers in the school system who've constructed lesson plans about tolerance. And that's another message that we're trying to get across. We will not condone intolerance from the children. We will not condone that kind of ignorance. If children are feeling that they're being singled out in some way, they must come and tell us.
Okay, you know, on that subject, I have, we call this, I mean, he's a high school teacher, chemistry, and he teaches in Dusable High School in Southside Chicago. By itself, the place is quiet, it has its problems, yet he enjoys teaching. Sama Faiq is with me on the phone. Sama, I know we talked this before, but I'd like you to say to our viewers, you as a teacher, okay, and you have students, they came up to you after the tragic incident, and of course, everybody had questions. Maybe they had, oh, you guys, you did it, and all of that, the accusations. How did you handle it as an Arab American and a teacher?
Hello, Shameem.
Hi,
well, you know, it's so much has happened in the last week. It's hard to begin. On the Wednesday after everything happened, yes, students came up to me and started asking me, Mr. Faiq, you are Arab. You know, why are your people doing this? And I explained to them, I took the time out of each of my classes, and explained to each of my students about our culture, about what's going on in the Middle East, about our religion, and that our religion forbids killing of innocent people and forbids suicide attacks. And I was able to open up the eyes of a lot of my students towards the culture, and I think that was a great job, you know, to do, especially in such a impoverished community who already holds a lot of grudges towards Arabs and Muslims who own businesses in their neighborhoods.
So your part was here as an educator also. We've been talking about education, which is really the most important thing between all of us, right? Nothing happened. I mean, you were not, let's say, assaulted in any way, verbally or physically?
No one ever came up to me and said anything assaultive or insulting in any way. Some comments have been made that I've overheard that have come from adults that were very ignorant, and I've confronted the adults and tried to talk to them about why they feel that way. And basically what it comes down to is people are angry.
Yes.
And I can't diminish their anger, but I could try to educate them about, you know, the other side.
Thank you, Sama. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. We're still on that subject. What do we call for the parents to do?
Well, I think the parents need to keep life as normal as possible. I think also both parents and schools need to examine with the children what they are actually feeling and thinking, because we have found that children of all ages have a lot of misconceptions about just the facts. I think that parents can limit the amount of violent media that children watch, the video games and the television and the movies. I think that I think they can help children feel safe in school. I think that many parents have offered to come and talk with groups in the school. The more communal activity we have between school and the Muslim leaders in the community, I think the more we'll all benefit.
Well, we hope so. That will be more work, outreach between the two sides. Fuad, you're a father. Also, comment. What was the children?
Well,
any reaction? Anything?
Of course, there are a lot of reactions, but I mean, let's face it. When we take a look at the American history, we know we Americans have a short memory. And let me share with you a story that back during the Gulf War. During the Gulf War, there's a lot of confusion. I received a phone call from Mr. Najib Halabi, and he says, "Fuad, how do you feel?" I said, "Mr. Halabi, I'm depressed, and I'm confused, and I don't know what's going on." He said, "Why?" I told him that there's a lot of backlash against Arab Americans, and we just don't know how to react to that. And what he comforted me with, when he said, "Fuad," he said, "if you take a look throughout the American history, not long ago, the Irish American used to be called the Yellow Bellies. And the Japanese Americans, they were also, hated. And you take a look at the African Americans, and you take a look at every minority within our society, they went through the stage. So what we are going through right now, we must learn from the other minorities, which it should give us a lot of strength. And that's strength.
What we need.
That's why when we take a look at this tragedy, I feel that the Arab and the Muslim Americans must take a positive advantage of this tragedy, to learn from it, and to realize while the Americans are loving, giving, sharing, the biggest fear that we have is only fear itself, and because they are ignorant, they don't know enough. And because they don't know enough, it's our responsibility to take a positive advantage of this tragedy, is to educate them.
That's right. We go back
to let them know that we are a human.
Of course.
We have love, we have emotions, we have an American loyalty.
I'm going to take 2 calls, but I hope they will be very quick, because I haven't heard Reshma yet, and she had a beautiful letter written to the Washington Post. Caller from Springfield, Maryland, please.
Hi. I'm calling actually. I'm very grateful about the show, and we are deeply saddened by the tragedy. I have a couple of things that I have been following in the news that are basically evidence of who could be the terrorist, and I'm very conflicted about these evidence. The activity that took place at the Chicago Stock Board before the tragedy happened, reflecting that those people who did it were really planning that they're going to be benefiting financially from the tragedy. And then the other thing, that 3 of the people who were out of the 19 people who were our suspects came up to the FBI agents and told them that we were still alive and they were supposed to be among the hijackers. And then the father of Ahmed Atta, who's a primary suspect, showed up at the Abu Dhabi satellite channel, and he said that his son called him 24 hours after the tragedy, and he's still alive, and he's in Germany. And then the CNN showed the Palestinians celebrating in Palestine, while it turned out it's from the archive.
Okay, thank you. Fuad, can you make it short, because I want to hear Reshma, please.
I want to address this a little bit, because we came to find out today that particular clipping of the Palestinian children dancing, that was an old one back to 1991.
Brazilian, I think.
Exactly, the Brazilian TV.
Cameraman or yes.
Exactly. So it's unfair for the American TV, or better yet, for the CNN to show this.
That's right. And that was something I wanted to ask. This circulated email and saying that that's what it is. We will make sure if this is it. Let's not butter. I mean, let's tell the media here that's not true, okay? And I think this is the role of you and other leaders in our community to do that. Reshma, you wrote a beautiful letter and to the Washington Post, but this is what really I stopped at it. I feel as though I've suddenly become the enemy of 2 groups: those who wish to hurt Americans and those Americans who wish to strike back.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's a very strange place to be, to suddenly be victimized from every direction, and and to not feel safe in your country, and to not then feel safe on your own streets.
It must be devastating, that feeling. I mean, it's terrible.
It's very devastating. There have been, hundreds of hate crimes, and hundreds that haven't even been reported. I was talking to a woman today who tried to get on a bus, and the bus driver slammed the door in her face and said, "This bus isn't going where you need to go." There's a woman who tried to buy groceries, and the store people told her, "We're not selling you our food." So
there's been, unfortunately, these incidents, yes.
But at the same time, I've also been very heartened by some very positive responses I've gotten.
We're getting emails, beautiful friends calling.
A head of a church called me and said, "Can we come and scrub graffiti off your mosque?"
Oh, how nice.
So if people are feeling that way, and if they want to reach out, I hope that they will, because it means a lot.
Yes. Amr is with me on the phone. Amr has been waiting for 2 hours, really. Amr, give me in 1 minute.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. One of the things that I've been working on is, with the American Medical Student Association, is working on coalition building and trying to get people to understand that Arab Americans are Americans, and like Muslim Americans, also are Americans. We belong to this community. We need to be engaged. We need to express our opinions. And I'm so happy to say and very proud that people have been very supportive and helped out. American Medical Student Association released a very strong statement pro-tolerance, and that's very, very important.
Thank you very much, Amr. I would like to apologize. We should have had many guests, especially from Washington, especially like Access, who have been doing a lot in Detroit, and the Arab American and Chaldean Council. They've been doing tremendous work, really, and they send me all their work, but it's unfortunate. But anyway, this happens. Last thoughts, Fuad.
Well, I like to close it in summing it up that we are right now today much stronger than ever we've been before. I think we will have the ability to really diminish whatever threat that will come, not only to the American society, but also to all the societies of the world. We will have a peaceful. But I like to say, one thing. During the Gulf War, we experienced the same backlash. And I remember in a meeting with President Bush, when I told him, Mr. President, there is no time right now for the Arab American loyalty to be in a question, because we are Americans first.
That's right.
He wrote me back a short note saying, I will never question the loyalty of the Arab Americans.
Thank you. Thank you. That's
so we
beautiful.
are grateful to this leadership.
Thank you. 2 words or 3 words, thoughts.
We're grieving. We're Americans. This has happened to us.
Thank you.
I would like to encourage everybody to share the things we have in common: the love of our children, the importance of family and friends, a belief in the values of democracy, and the fact that this is America and we value our diversity.
Thank you very much, really. It's lovely. I wish we had more hours to talk about it, I know, but we've tried. And thank you very much for all my guests. All of them have been here for the past 2 hours. Thank you for coming, taking your time. And I would like to thank all the staff at C-SPAN 2 for joining us for the first time, this venture, to at least to make our voice reach other part of our community, the Americans. And we are the Americans also. Yet also I'd like to thank the Arabic channel for being with us and their viewers, and of course ANA, and on behalf of everybody, God bless us all, and let's pray that our land will be always safe, and we'll be safe, and our children, our future. Thank you.